Sometimes danger doesn't come screaming. It comes smiling, offering coffee, saying, "It's for your own good." I lost my mother in April of 2015. It was sudden, a stroke out of nowhere, and I was 27 years old. I remember going days without being able to sleep properly. I was living in Columbus, Ohio, and working as an assistant at a dental clinic. My whole life revolved around her, and suddenly I was alone in a small apartment filled with silence. That was when I met Mark. He was a client of a mutual friend, showed up at that friend's birthday party about 2 months after my mother's death. I almost didn't go. I remember him coming up to talk to me because he noticed I was quiet in the corner, fidgeting with a beer I wasn't drinking. He asked if I lived nearby, and when I said yes, he smiled and said, "Then there's no excuse not to go out anymore." I laughed for the first time in weeks. He was 35, divorced, worked in insurance, the kind of man who always seems to know what to do. Steady voice, easy smile. We started going out at the end of June, and within a few weeks he already knew my favorite places. The coffee shop near work, the park where I used to walk with my mom. He listened to everything, remembered the details. At first, it seemed like care, attention. During our first winter together, he gave me a scarf just like the one my mom used to wear. He said he wanted to give me back a little piece of what I'd lost. I cried. That's when I thought he was the right man. We moved in together after a year, a small 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with retired neighbors. I cooked dinner. He came home from work and turned on the news. It seemed like the kind of routine everyone would call a stable life. I liked folding his clothes while he talked about insurance and annoying clients. Sometimes I found it funny how life could start to feel normal again after so much chaos. My friends started seeing me less, but not because he told me to. It was my choice at first. I wanted stability, routine. I wanted to stop feeling like the world was about to collapse. Mark was predictable, and that gave me peace. On our first anniversary, he took me to Nashville, a simple hotel but with a view of the city. That night, he said he wanted to get married whenever I felt ready. I thought it was sweet that he gave me that time. 2 months later, I said yes. The wedding was in his parents' backyard. His sister Lisa organized everything. Small, just close family. I remember thinking I was starting over, that my mom would have been happy if she could see it. Lisa was nice, the practical, straightforward type, not dramatic. She gave me a tight hug and said, "Welcome to the mess that is our family." The first few years were peaceful. Work, bills, Netflix at night, Sunday barbecues. He was the kind of man who held the door open, took out the trash, remembered to pay the bills before the due date. Sometimes I even laughed about how he planned everything so precisely. Coming from a chaotic life, I found comfort in that. But looking back now, I understand that predictability was the first brick in the wall of control. At the time, though, it felt like love. I still thought I was being cared for. The first time I noticed something strange was on a Friday when I got ready to go out with 2 coworkers. I put on a black spaghetti strap top and a denim jacket over it. Mark looked at me and said with a laugh, "You're going out in that top? It's kind of short, isn't it?" It didn't sound like a prohibition. He said it lightly while putting on his shoes, but the tone stuck in my head. I ended up changing clothes. Later he complimented me, said the lighter blouse fit my personality better. A small thing, that's how it started. Little comments, always with that tone of concern. "That skirt's pretty, but kind of flashy. That lipstick's a bit much for a simple dinner." At first it seemed like care. He said he only wanted to protect me, because the world was full of bad people. I believed him. The house started to change too. He said he wanted to make it more practical. He replaced the rug my mother had given me because it collected too much dust, rearranged the furniture to improve the flow. I gave in, thinking it was just a difference in taste. One time I came home and saw he'd thrown away a box of my old letters and notes. When I asked why, he said, "You're always reminiscing about sad stuff. That just keeps you stuck in the past." I stood there staring at the trash, trying to find the letters. He hugged me from behind and said, "It's for your own good, honey. Let's look forward." And for some reason, I believed him. One Sunday, my friend Emily dropped by unannounced. Mark answered the door. When I came into the living room, he was already saying, "Oh, she's busy. Crazy week." Emily looked at me, confused. I smiled awkwardly and nodded. When she left, he turned to me and said, "I don't want to be rude, but your friend talks too much. And you always act different after you see her." He started convincing me that certain people were bad for me. Wanting peace, I withdrew. I thought I was being mature, choosing the marriage. Over time, I noticed he always knew when I messaged someone. Once he mentioned something I had said only in a chat with a coworker. I asked how he knew, and he replied, "Oh, you told me, remember?" I didn't, but I doubted myself. In the living room, the TV was always on. He liked to control the volume, the channel. If I switched to something light, he'd say it was nonsense and turn it back to the news. The sound of anchors arguing about politics became the constant background of the house. At night, sometimes I'd stare out the window at the neighbors. Lights on, people eating, laughing. Inside our house, everything was silent, too organized. I still didn't call it control. I thought I was just adjusting. One night, coming back from work, I saw his car parked outside the clinic. He never showed up there. He said he was in the area and decided to surprise me. I felt awkward. It was only a 15-minute walk home, but I got in the car. On the way, he asked if that guy in the blue shirt was always near my desk. I laughed, saying he was just the new receptionist. He didn't laugh. After that, he started stopping by more often. Sometimes he'd drop off coffee at reception, sometimes just text, "I see you." I thought it was sweet, until I realized he was watching from the parking lot even when I didn't know. One day I came home and saw my laptop in another room. He said he'd cleaned the desktop. It was a mess. All my personal files were now in a folder called Old Stuff. At dinner, he'd say things like, "It's good we think alike. That way there's no confusion." Once, he criticized his own sister Lisa's outfit, saying she should be more modest. I felt uncomfortable, but I realized he spoke about any woman that way, as if they all needed approval. I started policing my own clothes, even at home. But the worst was the way he looked at me whenever I did something spontaneous, singing while cooking, laughing to myself, texting someone. It was as if everything needed an explanation. Before I knew it, I wasn't talking to anyone without telling him first, and he seemed satisfied. The first missing message happened with my friend Emily. She'd sent me a voice note asking how I was, saying I seemed distant lately. A few days later, she mentioned it in person. "I thought you were mad at me. You never answered my message." But I hadn't received anything. I opened the app, and the last chat was old. Nothing new. I figured it was a glitch. Mark was next to me and asked casually, "Problems with Emily again?" The way he said "again" froze me. There was no "again." He went back to his phone. Gradually, I noticed other glitches. Missed calls I never saw, deleted messages, emails that disappeared. Mark began insisting that my family made me anxious. Said every time I talked to my sister, I got weird. That she kept reminding me too much of Mom, keeping me stuck in the past. The few times I visited my sister, he'd send messages. "You okay? Will you take long? Don't forget we have groceries later." Nothing aggressive, just constant. Polite surveillance. She started to notice. "He texts you all the time." I said it was care. She looked at me in silence. The kind of silence that weighs. At home one day, he took my phone saying he wanted to install an antivirus. "I'll show you later, I'm testing something." I forgot to check what it was. That app. My routine shrank. Work, home, grocery store, TV. Emily stopped trying to reach out. My sister kept insisting I visit her more. I always said next week, and next week never came. It became clear one Tuesday afternoon. I'd left my phone charging in the kitchen and went to shower. When I came back, the phone was on the living room table, screen lit. He was on the couch watching TV. I asked if he'd touched it, and he replied without looking at me. It was beeping. I went to check. I picked it up. The conversation with my sister, which used to have 10 messages, now had 5. The others were gone. I looked at him, but he seemed calm, flipping channels. His calmness disarmed me. It made me feel like the crazy one. That night, I waited for him to fall asleep. I grabbed his phone, just on impulse, my heart pounding. I saw an app with the same icon as the antivirus he'd installed on mine. I tapped it quickly, but it had a password. I closed it before he woke up. I tried to talk to Lisa, his sister, about it over coffee. She listened quietly. "You think he's spying on you?" "I think so, but I don't have proof. You need to stay calm. Don't say anything for now." I went home trying to act normal. That night, he seemed off, quieter than usual. When I went to bed, his phone vibrated with a notification. On the screen, a preview. App connected successfully. I pretended not to see it. In the following days, I started noticing patterns. Every time I talked to someone by text, he would bring up the subject later, disguised. If I mentioned a book to my sister, he'd show up with that same book saying he saw it by chance and thought of me. The next week, the phone at the clinic rang and no one answered on the other end. I could hear breathing. Slow, deliberate. I hung up. Hours later, he texted me, "I got to hear your voice earlier. I like knowing you're okay." And the fear I felt turned into focus. I didn't plan to leave the house. It was instinct. That morning, he left early for work, and I stood in the kitchen, staring at the microwave clock showing 7:43. I grabbed a backpack, tossed in some clothes, my toothbrush, and the old phone I'd hidden in a drawer. I sent a short message to my sister. "Can I stay with you for a few days?" She replied in less than a minute. "Come now." I drove for almost 2 hours without thinking, only stopped to get gas and breathe. When I arrived, she opened the door before I even knocked. Her face was the first safe place I'd seen in months. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing. Or everything. I just need to stay away from him for a while." She didn't ask more. She gave me a blanket, made coffee, and let the silence do the rest. During the first few days, I slept almost all the time. When I woke up, my phone had dozens of messages from him. "Are you okay? You disappeared. It's not fair to leave like this. We need to talk." I didn't answer. I turned the phone off and started using the old one. I felt guilty, but also light. It was strange how his silence felt like freedom. My sister never spoke badly about him. She only said, "You have to remember who you were before." One afternoon, my sister-in-law Lisa called. Her voice was different. "Is this your new number?" "I got it from your sister." I told her it was urgent. "Yes, I don't want Mark to know. I know something's wrong. Mark's been acting weird. Come over, I need to show you something." I went to her house the next day. She met me in the garage, not wanting the neighbors to hear. She took her phone from her pocket and showed me a screenshot of a conversation between her and her brother. "Mark, what are you and my wife plotting?" "Lisa, what do you mean?" "Mark, don't try to play smart. I know she's been talking to you." She looked at me seriously. "He's paranoid. Said you're hiding things. He's spying on me, Lisa." "I'm sure of it. I believe you." She said that when she saw him at their parents' house, he'd been strange lately, always with his phone in his hand, leaving the room to take calls, changing the subject when anyone came near. "He asked me not to see you anymore. Said you're unstable." I gave a bitter laugh. "Sounds like a joke." That night, he sent another message. "I stopped by your sister's. She said you don't want to see me." "Why?" I ran to the kitchen. My sister looked at me, startled. "He came here?" "Yes. Yesterday afternoon. I told him you were resting and needed space. He stood at the door for a few minutes, said we'd both regret this." For the first time, I felt real physical fear. That was the first time I thought about a restraining order. The next morning, the lawyer called me, asking me to save everything. Messages, screenshots, call logs. Said it could become a serious case. I was still trying to understand how a man who used to make me coffee and say, "Get some rest, honey," had turned into someone who could scare me with a sentence. And the worst part was knowing that somehow, he still thought he was taking care of me. Update 1. My sister-in-law Lisa called me again, said she needed to see me in person, and without anyone knowing. I drove to her house, heart pounding. She greeted me with her hair tied up messily. "Close the door," she said before even hugging me. We sat in the kitchen. She placed her phone on the table and took a deep breath. "Sarah, I need to show you something, but I want you to be prepared." It was a conversation between Mark and another woman. The messages started off light, but quickly became intimate. "I miss your scent. She doesn't suspect a thing. Can't wait to see you at the hotel again." The name at the top of the screen hit me like a punch. Megan, his cousin's wife. I couldn't breathe. "Is this real?" Lisa nodded slowly. "Screenshots from his phone. I saw them when he left it unlocked at our parents' house." She looked at me with a kind of pity that hurt more than the news itself. "He lied to everyone, Sarah. Even to me." I stared at the screen, my fingers shaking. He was cheating on me, and within his own family. Lisa went on, "They've been seeing each other for months. From what I gathered, since before you left home, he uses business trips as an excuse." "Mark?" I could barely speak. "Yes." I just sat there, silent, like my mind had gone mute. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the screenshots. Lisa put her hand on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, but now you need to think about what you're going to do." I went back to my sister's house and locked myself in the bedroom. I sat there, staring at nothing, while Mark's notifications kept flashing on my phone. Short, insistent messages. "Can we talk? I miss you." All I could think about was, "She doesn't suspect a thing." I read those words over and over in my head. In the following days, I started moving silently. The shock had turned into focus. And focus, at that point, was the only way not to fall apart. Lisa kept helping me, but cautiously. She said Mark seemed suspicious, acted strange, asked where she spent her weekends. I told her to keep her distance for a while, until I figured out what to do. She agreed. The lawyer advised me to gather evidence. "Anything you can record, message, screenshot, do it, and don't use the same device. If he really was monitoring you, he might be watching in real time." I bought a prepaid phone. No social media, no photos, just texts and notes. On it, I started a folder called Truth. The first notes were cold. Dates, times, screenshots. Then came rawer descriptions. The tone of his voice in audio messages, the words he repeated, the guilt patterns. It was like mapping someone I thought I knew. The following week, the lawyer introduced me to a private investigator. He only asked, "Do you want to know if he's still seeing her, or if there are others?" I thought for a few seconds. I want to know everything. Days of waiting followed. Short calls, discreet reports. I pretended normality at my sister's house, helped in the kitchen, took walks. At night, I stared at the phone, waiting for the next update. One afternoon, the investigator met me at a cafe near the highway. He had a brown envelope on the table. He's still in contact with her. They've been meeting at hotels around Dayton. He slid the envelope toward me. Inside, photos. Them entering together, her wearing sunglasses, him in the same coat as always. And there's more. Looks like he's also been texting a coworker, but his main focus is the same woman. The same woman. I heard that like an echo. I left the cafe with the envelope under my arm. In the car, I looked at the photos. No surprise. Only confirmation. The cousin's wife. Her face didn't make me angry, just strange, as if she too was part of the same lie I had lived. That night, my lawyer called. "With this evidence, you can file for divorce on grounds of infidelity and psychological abuse. Do you want to proceed?" "Yes, but I don't want him to know until the very last moment." In the following days, I quietly set up the plan, changed all passwords, authorized the lawyer to act on my behalf. It was like defusing a bomb. Every step required calm. Mark kept texting, less frequently now. Sometimes photos of the house, sometimes vague phrases like, "Things only got out of hand because you stopped listening to me." That week, the lawyer scheduled the meeting to file the process. While he talked about paperwork, I looked out the office window, watching leaves fall in the parking lot. It was November again, 10 years since my mother's death. I thought about how she hated seeing people trapped in sick relationships. And for the first time, I felt like I was doing something she'd approve of. He sent me a message, an invitation. Family dinner Saturday at my parents' house. It'll be good for all of us. That "all of us" sounded like a trap. I knew it. Lisa knew it. The lawyer told me not to go, but I went anyway. Not out of courage, out of necessity. After so long being silenced, I needed to see his face when the truth came out. Lisa drove me there. The silence in the car was heavy. I had everything on my phone, plus an envelope with all the evidence, messages, photos, screenshots, everything he would deny to the end. "Are you sure?" she asked. He's always told his version. Today it's my turn. His parents' house was the same as on our wedding day. The same backyard where we said "I do." Yellow lights, the smell of barbecue, fake laughter. For a moment, it looked like any other party. But I knew it was the stage for the end. When I walked in, Mark was by the grill, talking to his cousin, Megan's husband. For a second, the irony almost made me laugh. "Sarah!" His mother came to hug me, surprised. "I'm so happy you two are trying to work things out." Mark appeared right behind her, with that same triumphant smile as always. "We just needed to talk calmly, right, honey?" Honey. I heard the word like a forgotten language. When everyone saw us, they applauded, thinking I had come back to him. His mother cried with emotion. "That's what family is. Love always wins." Mark kissed my forehead, pleased with the show. For a while, I let him believe it. I sat down, ate a little, answered their greetings, and then I saw, across the table, Megan. Tense, fidgeting with her napkin. Every time Mark spoke to me, she looked away. Now everything made sense. In the middle of lunch, he raised his glass. "I want to take this moment to say a few words. Not every marriage is easy, but when love is true, it endures everything. Sarah has taught me what forgiveness means, and I promise in front of all of you, never to fail this wonderful woman again." Everyone clapped, even Megan. He looked at me with that stage smile. He expected me to complete the speech. I stood up slowly. "Can I say a few words too?" Lisa lowered her eyes. She knew what was coming. His mother nodded, emotional. "Of course, dear." I looked at everyone. "Thank you for having me. It's nice to see that you all believe in love. But today, love isn't the topic. The topic is truth." I paused. "Before we finish, I'd like to ask something. Open the family group chat. Let me share something with you all, so you can see how beautiful love can be." Light chuckles. One of the uncles asked, "What is it? A surprise?" "Yes," I said firmly. "A little couple's secret." Notifications started popping up. Conversations stopped. Within seconds, the noise turned into silence. The betrayed cousin looked at his screen, then at Megan. His face turned pale. Megan? She tried to speak but only shook her head. Mark took a step forward. What did you do, Sarah? I showed them what you were hiding. Their phone screens reflected his downfall. I miss your scent. She doesn't suspect a thing. Hotel, 3 p.m. as usual? The cousin took a deep breath. You slept with my wife? Mark tried to back away. It's not what it looks like. This was before. But the cousin, a big, quiet man, a former fighter, stood up in a flash. The chair flew back. In seconds, he grabbed Mark by the collar and shoved him against the wall. Glasses fell, wine spilled. With my wife, you bastard! His mother screamed. Lisa tried to hold him back. Mark tried to defend himself, but the cousin hit him square in the face. Mark stumbled, fell to the side. Another punch landed before his father, and an uncle pulled the cousin away. Enough! Someone shouted. Mark looked at me, panting, eyes full of rage. You set this up. No, I just waited for the right moment to let the truth in. The cousin was breathing hard, restrained. You're a worm. A man who destroys everything he touches. You piece of garbage. Silence. Heavy. It was over. I grabbed my bag. The divorce papers will arrive tomorrow. Oh, and next time you cheat on someone, try not to leave your phone unlocked at your parents' house. I walked out without looking back. As the gate closed behind me, everything started fading into the distance. Update 2. In the days that followed, his parents' house turned into a battlefield. Lisa told me the cousin left shouting, dragging his wife by the arm, and that Mark tried to make up a story about invasion of privacy. But no one believed him. The evidence spoke for itself. The photos circulated among relatives, then among his coworkers. Within a week, the man who controlled everything could no longer control his own narrative. What happened at that lunch became an earthquake. Word spread among relatives, neighbors, colleagues. But what surprised me most was the silence from his family. No messages, no calls. Lisa called me 3 days later, voice trembling. They're blaming me, Sarah. What do you mean? Mark went to our parents' house the next day, said I invaded his privacy, that I was the one who took the photos of his messages. And they believed him? Pause. They didn't just believe him. They said I destroyed the family. She told me the rest in broken sentences. Mark showed up unexpectedly, his face still bruised. Threw his phone on the table and asked, It was you, wasn't it? You looked through my phone. Lisa tried to deny it, but he kept pushing. Only you could have done it. Sarah wouldn't have access. She answered firm. If you had nothing to hide, there wouldn't be photos. Their father slammed the table. You've always been against your brother, always meddling in other people's marriages. Their mother, crying, added, Sarah should have handled it privately. You don't expose family matters like that. Lisa said she tried to explain. That Mark had been cheating for months, that she only wanted to warn me. But it was useless. They had already chosen their side. They said they knew Mark had been involved with Megan, but that he was stopping, that things were getting better. Getting better? I repeated. Yeah, they said I ruined everything, that if I'd just stayed quiet, he would have gotten back on track. My parents aren't speaking to me, Sarah. They blocked me, said I can't come home until I apologize. And will you? No, I know what I saw. After that call, I cried, not out of anger, but realization. In that family, truth was never welcome. They could accept anything, except a mirror. Mark, meanwhile, tried to flip the story. He messaged my lawyer claiming I had set up an ambush. Lisa became the target. His mother began saying she'd always been jealous of her brother, that she wanted to ruin other people's marriages to look like a saint. His father repeated that a brother is a brother, and cheating is a mistake, not a crime. They split, and the blame fell on the one who told the truth. That's how that world worked. The guilty became the victim, and the one who spoke was the traitor. When my lawyer called to tell me Mark had signed the divorce papers, I didn't feel victory, just a deep silence. He'd tried to negotiate, but gave up once he realized the evidence was legally secured. The process went quickly. Lisa texted me briefly. He signed. It's over. I replied, Thank you for everything. She wrote back, They don't look me in the eye anymore. But it was worth it. And I believed her. In the following days, I slept better. I started working part-time, then accepted a job in a neighboring town. New address, new number, new silence. Lisa still hasn't spoken to her parents. They say at family gatherings that they don't know what's gotten into her. But she calls me sometimes, and we laugh about small things. The coffee that got cold, the cat that knocked over a plant, the life that insists on moving forward. A month later, my lawyer told me, the case is closed. You're officially free. He said free the way someone talks about a person who's escaped a fire. And in a way, that's exactly what it was. In the end, he lost the control he thought he had, and I reclaimed the voice he tried to silence.